Ron Siegel Radio, your home and mortgage connection.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries as we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media. This is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit in current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day. We have a very focused show. We only chat about items that affect the roof over your head, your bank account, and anything I feel would benefit you. But before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guest today, longtime friend, and actually, Rondi got involved in starting radio. I think it's starting radio right about the same time I did. I started in 2010, actually August. So I'm just coming up on my 15-year anniversary. Welcome, Rondi Lambeth. How are you, buddy?
I am doing well and blessed. Yes, it was 2010. I started my radio career.
Yeah, kind of both of us right back then.
Yeah.
Hey, let me remind you, if you ever have any home or finance-related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you. And you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are operators standing by.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan or plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And yes, of course, we are celebrating today. It is National Father-in-Law Day. We're not going to celebrate that one today. But having beaten anorexia, we are going to go with National Cheesecake Day. And yes, there's some interesting. I think that picture, Josh, had to have come from Cheesecake Factory. Because you got the chocolate cheesecake, you got that swirl in there, you got another one. I like cheesecake, but let's. What's your favorite? What's your favorite cheesecake? Are you a cheesecake lover, plain, or do you like lots of toppings on there? Question of the day: what are your favorite toppings? And I will throw this out there, just because it brings back very, very fond memories. So my mother, may she rest in peace, used to make great cheesecake. And she'd put blueberry toppings on some, and she'd put cherry toppings. So I'll go both ways, blueberry and cherry. I like them both. What's your favorite? Put it in the chat if you're watching us live on any of our socials right now. If you're watching us or listening to us on ABC News and Talk, AM 1490 or FM 98.1, if you're watching us or listening to us on there live at 6 in the evening, hey, just go ahead and yell at the radio, because I've got extra good hearing and I will hear you. So just yell at the radio. Tell us what your favorites are for your cheesecake. Let's take a look and see what the markets are doing today. We've got the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 10. S&P 500 is up 13.73. NASDAQ is up 84. And the dreaded oil number, up $1.12 a barrel. We've jumped over that $70 a barrel price. I wonder what's going to drive that one. Well, we are in Calizuela, and we're paying $4.47 a gallon of gasoline.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Thanks, Gavin. We appreciate you. Well, no, we don't, but we have to deal with it anyway. Now Rondi's going to talk to us about taxes today. I don't think there's a way of getting around this 28% tax we pay on gasoline here in the formerly Golden State. I know they're trying to tax now the EVs, but the government's going to take away that tax break. So we'll see what happens to the sale there. Washington, $4.39 a gallon of gasoline. Rondi, you're in Idaho, aren't you? I think that's
I am in Idaho.
okay. So the tough state of Idaho, it's at $3.48 a gallon of gasoline out there. So $1 a gallon. Now that's the AAA number, so it might be cheaper in some of the big cities, a little more expensive in the rural areas. But $1 a gallon better in price than what we're paying here in Taxifornia. And Gavin thinks he's doing a good job. It just baffles me how some people look at it and they don't really, I'm not sure a lot of people even know who they're voting for, right? They see the D after someone's name and, it could stand for donkey. And in this case, it might, but and that's why I'm really worried about our friends in New York, right? They just had an election for mayor or a primary for mayor in New York. And literally, they've got a communist that they've nominated to be the Democrat candidate. Why? I think it's just because he's got a D after his name, right? I mean, how much more communist can it be than he wants the city to take over the grocery stores? Can you imagine that? People in Kansas who have one of the cities that did take over the grocery stores, they understand all too well what that means. Well, they've got no vegetables in the store. They've got no fresh meat in the store. But the city gets I don't know, they get subsidized for it. So just be careful of, do your homework. Who you vote for, I don't care. Obviously, I have my opinions, but do your homework ahead of time. Now, for those of you that are worried about the inflation because of tariffs, we hear that all the time in the news, that, the tariffs are going to bring us a lot more inflation. And I've been saying to you over and over again, it's not true. You're not going to see a lot of inflation because of tariffs. Well, what happened and what have I said to you? I've told you that tariffs are punitive more than inflationary. So what happened with Apple? If you are a part of the Apple environment, well, all of a sudden, just as I suggested would happen and what I did when I was in the import-export business, is the supply chain moves. So the U.S. has been going through this battle with China, and the U.S. is looking at adding significant tariffs to China. What did Apple do? Well, about a year ago, they started moving their supply chain to India. And now for the first time in the second quarter, smartphones assembled in India accounted for 44% of all U.S. smartphone imports, a significant jump from 13% a year before. China's share, conversely, fell sharply from 61% to 25%. Now, if you're a Chinese smartphone manufacturer, that's not what you want to see because, Apple phones, Apple products, they're not the bargain basement pricing. In China, they go for bargain basement. That's what their economy is made from. So just watch how this continues to happen. Now, there is news in the market today that, the Trump administration is not too happy with India because they haven't got a trade deal done yet. But, something, I have a feeling that when they start looking at 25% tariffs on the goods coming out of India, they might want to come to the table. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. When we come back, what credit score do you really need to buy a home? We're going to talk about taxes and how to minimize them by being educated. And my commentary all the time. One tax code, two tax systems, one system for the educated, one system for the informed, and one system for the uninformed. We want to make you more informed on Ron Siegel Radio. You can reach us anytime. Our off-air number, it's 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you miss any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the number 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel lending team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel lending team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037 and DRE number 018694552. You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Mortgage Minute today being brought to you by rsrlinks.com/mobile app. rsrlinks.com/mobile app. And every day at this time, OBMMI, they provide the most comprehensive, accurate, timely, and interactive analysis of pricing ever conducted in the mortgage industry, calculated from actual locked rates with consumers across 35% of all mortgage transactions nationwide. They do not tell us points paid, points received, or the APR. They tell us the number you put in your mortgage calculator to find out what your principal and interest payment will be. Don't have a mortgage calculator? Get it for free. rsrlinks.com/mobile app. Yesterday, rates were mixed. Conventional 30-year fixed, 6.735. That was up. Jumbo 30-year fixed, 6.822. That was up. FHA 30-year fixed, 6.464. That was down. VA 30-year fixed, 6.334. That was down. USDA 30-year fixed, 6.424. That was down. And the best loan on the market, the Home Select All-in-One loan, that one just stays the same, but it might go down tomorrow or Friday when the rates change for the month. And yes, that's the loan that'll have your home paid off in 8 to 10 years without making a larger mortgage payment. You got to be looking at that one. What's driving rates? And I told you earlier that this was going to be a very, very busy week as the week progresses. So let's see what's going on today. We've got the S&P 500 is up 15 points. Why? Well, everything's just sitting on hold right now. Federal Reserve is going to come out with their statement about 11 o'clock our time. They're not going to be too interesting then because the fireworks start at 11:30. That's when Jerome Powell will have his press conference. Yeah, I know they're going to ask him, is he going to resign? And he's not. They're going to ask him about the building, which nobody cares about, but they keep putting in there. But they also, the Treasury, announced their quarterly refunding announcement today, showing that they're going to keep their auction sizes the same. Government is always auctioning off debt as we are running a deficit. What would have spooked the market would have been an increase in auction size, but they remain the same. The Treasury said that since the debt ceiling has been raised by $5 trillion, they would fund the government when needed with bill issuance. This is something that Scott Bessent said he would do, which is in turn the new debt shorter to have less of an impact on longer term rates. Additionally, bill issuances can be absorbed by the explosion of the stablecoin market, where 80% of what they own is short-term Treasury debt like bills. Treasury also said they're going to increase their buybacks of longer-term debt like 10-year, 20-year, and 30-year Treasuries. Not a huge amount, but they're increasing their buybacks from 2 times a quarter to 4 times, and for an additional $8 billion per quarter. That means there's going to be less supply out there, more demand out there. That means that those prices should go up and the rates go down. We got the ADP employment report today. The July ADP report showed that there were 104,000 job gains, which is stronger than the 75,000 expected. The previous report for June was revised slightly higher from a negative 33,000 to negative 23,000. Still negative, though. While the job gains in July were a beat, it's a pretty weak level of job creations. Good producing businesses had 31,000 jobs, while services providing added 74,000. The biggest areas of weakness continue to be small businesses, which added 12,000 jobs, but those with 20 to 49 employees shed 10,000 jobs. Leisure and hospitality, strongest sector once again, added 46,000 jobs, followed by financial activities, which added 28,000 jobs. The weakest sector was education and health services, which saw 38,000 job losses. Looking at wages, job stayers, or those who remained at their jobs, had their pay increase at 4.4%. Job changers, or those finding new job getting poached by the competition, saw an increase of 7%. Now we look at GDP, was reported up 3%, which is stronger than the 2.4% expected, but the GDP picture over the first 2 quarters is clouded due to tariffs. Many front ran them, and there was a huge amount of imports in the first quarter, which subtracted 4.6% from GDP, while the second quarter saw much less, and it added almost 5% to GDP. For this reason, it's necessary to average out the first and second quarters. When doing so, GDP is running at about 1.25%, which is somewhat stall speed. Apartment List reported that rent prices were flat in July and are down 0.8%. And they said that vacancies rose to 7.1%, which is the highest level since they began tracking it in 2017. When vacancy rates are higher, it's more of an impetus to lower prices to fill that rental. That's the Mortgage Minute, brought to you by our friends at rsrlinks.com/mobile app, rsrlinks.com/mobile app. So now the moment we've all been waiting for, and I will share with you that I'm kind of in the same boat as most of you. I love learning, and I love to have people come on my broadcast that are smarter than me. And today we've got Rondi Lambeth. He's I don't know if I could say it this way. He goes both ways. So Rondi helps people with their credit scores, and when Rondi and I started in radio, that's what Rondi was doing. He was the credit guru. And over the last, 10, 15 years, he's added becoming a tax advocate or tax advisor. And let's welcome Rondi Lambeth to the broadcast. Good morning, sir.
Hello.
Glad to have you with us. So when did you get into the tax world? I mean, I know I've been watching online, and I know it's been a while, but when did you start? When did you add that to your stable?
In 1988.
Wow.
So I left home at 15 years old, and I started a business because at 15 years old, what are you going to do? And one of my first contracts was mowing the lawn at a funeral home and washing the funeral director's cars. And that turned into a friendship where the gentleman that owned the funeral home took me under his wing, if you will, and started coaching me and mentoring me. And one of the things that he taught me at 17 years old is how much money you make is not as important. It's how much money you keep. And he started teaching me about tax write-offs and cash flow and business credit and personal credit. And so my entire life, Ron, I had paid little tiny bit of tax, less than 50 grand total in my life. And there's years that I make over $10 million a year. I should be paying millions of dollars a year in tax. Last year, I paid $316 in self-employment tax. No federal, no state. And even when I lived in California, I paid 0 California income tax and 0 federal. And I just started doing this as a full-time thing in the last 18 years. So it's been a while. The credit thing, when you knew me, it was easy for me because I ran the credit repair company. I was the number one paid on performance credit repair company in America, and people only paid me after the fact. So it was easy. And I had a massive heart attack in November 2023. And so it took me a year to recover from that. And I just did some soul searching, and I don't have to work. I have enough real estate now. And I just decided, I'm gonna let my companies, I'm gonna let my team run the debt settlement company, the tax settlement company, the credit repair company. And I spend about 2 hours a week doing that. And then I spend the rest of the time working with business owners, saving their business and helping them reduce their taxes, if not completely eliminate their income tax, without having to move to Puerto Rico or Dubai or Ireland. You can live in California, make $1 million or more a year, and pay 0 California income tax.
That's fascinating because I've said many, many times that, people don't understand. They keep talking about the rich paying their fair share. And, I'm going to submit right now, the rich do pay their fair share, but they're paying it to people like Rondi who know how to educate them on what the code really says. So
That's right.
they're not going to ever go.
93% of business owners, according to Forbes, pay more in tax than legally required by $56,000 a year. And here's the thing. The rich don't pay a lot in personal income tax because they don't make a lot of money personally. Everything is inside of LLCs and corporations and insurance policies.
That's pretty fascinating. And one of the that drives me nuts because you look at somebody like Warren Buffett, who's obviously been extremely successful in investing. And he doesn't, if you read his book, he tells you that he doesn't pay taxes because he owns the insurance company, right? And the insurance company, you don't know what their liability is, so they can write things off. But then he comes out and says, well, we need to pay more in taxes. So he basically says, you need to pay more in taxes, not me.
Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Just there's one tax code, two tax systems.
Right. So I'm going to save our discussion for credit. We'll do that in the next segment. But, I watched some of your social media things. And one of the things that just really intrigued me was you were sharing just the other day about, being able to use my second home and get some money or tax-free money. Can you explain that whole concept for me?
Yeah. So IRS code 280A, it's been around since the 1950s, also known as the Augusta rule, allows any taxpayer in the United States to rent their residence where they live to anyone 2 weeks out of every year, 100% tax-free. So if you live in California and you have a house in Laguna, like one of my clients, he rents his home for $30,000 per day. That's $420,000 that he's able to rent his home for to his business and pulls $420,000 out of his business 100% tax-free. You do not even have to own the home to do this, and you don't have to be a business owner. You could literally put your house, whether you own it or not, put it on Airbnb, rent it for 2 weeks of the year, keep that money, and you pay no income tax on it. In fact, the IRS code 280A states, do not tell us that you're renting your home. We don't want to know about it. And this all came about in the 1950s. They started this little golf tournament called the Masters in Augusta, Georgia. There wasn't any hotels. There's nowhere to stay. And so they were having the people in Augusta, Georgia, move out of their house, uproot their entire lives for 2 weeks so the golfers and the celebrities could go to Augusta and play golf. And so they lobbied Congress and said, look, it's not fair that we are moving out of our homes so you guys can make millions of dollars in tax revenue. We don't want to have to pay income tax on this 2 weeks. So they lobbied Congress, and Congress is who creates the rules. The CPA just enforces the rules. CPA is really just a referee. You are making a huge mistake. I think it's your number one mistake as a business owner, asking a CPA for tax advice. That's like calling a timeout. Patrick Mahomes calls a timeout, runs to the ref and says, how do we beat the 49ers? The ref is not there to help you beat the IRS. They're not there to help you beat the opposing team. They're there to make sure you follow the rules. So what they did is they lobbied Congress. Congress said, hey, look, you guys are helping us generate millions and millions of dollars in revenue. You can rent your house 2 weeks of the year and pay no income tax. So there is no limit. However, the most expensive home I can find for rent is $375,000 per year, and that's in Aspen, Colorado. So I tell people you can pull up to $750,000 out of your company 100% tax-free twice for 2 weeks every single year.
So when we come back, Rondi, I want to talk to you further about that one because I think I heard you say that I don't even have to own the home. So I want to talk to you about that when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. What credit score do you really need to buy a home and more? Reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Confused about the home buying process? Or curious how much you really know about buying a home? Take the First Home IQ quiz to test your understanding of buying a home. Created by the nonprofit First Home IQ, this 5-minute quiz will give you a score, what you missed, and why. Take the quiz in 5 minutes at rsrlinks.com/FHIQ and find out what you need to know about buying your first home. That's rsrlinks.com/FHIQ.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. What credit score do you really need to buy a home? According to Fannie Mae, 90% of buyers don't actually know what credit score lenders are looking for, or they overestimate the minimum needed. Let that sink in. That means most home buyers think they need better credit than they actually do, and maybe you're one of them. And that could make you think buying a home is out of reach for you right now, even if that's not necessarily true. So let's look at what the data really says about credit scores and home buying. There's no one magic number. There's no universal credit score you absolutely have to have when buying a home, and that means there's more flexibility than most people realize. Check out this graph if you're watching us on RonSiegelRadio.tv, any of our socials, or the ABC News and Talk, AM 1490 and FM 98.1 video feed. And the graph shows that flexibility, median credit scores, recent buyers had different home loan types. And that's the big thing right there, is there are all kinds of home loan types. Do you know the VA loan really has no credit score requirement? Think about that. If you're going direct, now there may be lenders that all have overlays, but the VA, they want veterans to own a home. And you know what? VA also has the lowest default of any loan product out there. Here's what's important to realize. The numbers vary, and there's no one-size-fits-all threshold. And that could open doors you thought were closed for you. The best way to learn more is to talk to a trusted lender. That's us. As FICO explains, while many lenders use credit scores like FICO scores to help them make lending decisions, each lender has its own strategy, including the level of risk it finds acceptable. There is no single cutoff score used by all lenders, and there are many additional factors that lenders may use, unquote. While your score still matters, when you buy a home, lenders use your credit score to get a sense of how reliable you are with money. They want to see if you typically make payments on time, pay back debts, and more. Your score can impact which loan types you may qualify for, the terms on those loans, and even your mortgage rate. And since mortgage rates are a big factor in how much house you'll be able to afford, that may make your score feel even more important today. As Bankrate says, quote, your credit score is one of the most important factors lenders consider when you apply for a mortgage, not just to qualify for the loan itself, but for the conditions. Typically, the higher your score, the lower the interest rates and better terms you'll qualify for. That still doesn't mean your credit has to be perfect. Even if your credit score isn't as high as you'd like, you may still be able to get a loan. Want to boost your score? Yeah, that's a good thought. And if you're talk to a lender and decide you want to move to improve your score and hopefully your loan type and terms too, give me a call at 800-306-1990. I've got the sources like our friend Rondi Lambeth. Pay your bills on time. This is one big one. Lenders want to see you can reliably pay your bills on time. This includes everything from credit cards to utilities and cell phone bills. Consistent on-time payments show you're a responsible borrower. Pay down your debt. When it comes to your available credit amount, the less you're using, the better. Focus on keeping this number as low as possible. That makes you lower risk borrower in the eyes of lenders, making them more likely to approve a loan with better terms. Review your credit report. Go to rsrlinks.com/FICO, rsrlinks.com/FICO, and find out what your true credit score is. It's the one that we use as lenders. Don't open the new accounts. And if you missed our broadcast yesterday when I gave you the roadmap to 850, go back and take a look at it. It's on our social channels. That's the real-time real estate segment brought to you by rsrmoney.com, rsrmoney.com. Continuing our conversation with the credit guru, the credit improvement guru, Rondi Lambeth. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but I want to go back. If you missed our last segment, shame on you, because Rondi just told you how to get, I don't know, thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars personally without having to pay tax. And the IRS says they don't want to know about it. So if you didn't catch that, shame on you. But Rondi, you made a comment about this on this Rule 280A, and you said that I don't even have to own the house that I'm renting. Is that it?
That's correct. So 288 says that any taxpayer, you don't even have to be a U.S. citizen. It's just you have to be a taxpayer, and you don't have to rent or you don't have to own the home. You could be a renter. So my daughter, for example, lives about 3 miles from the Las Vegas Stadium. And when the Super Bowl was there, we rented her home out for 1 week for $1,500 per night. So we were able to bring in over $10,000 in a week. And during that week, she was able to come to my house in Idaho and take a vacation. Now, her rent is only $2,000 a month. So she paid 5 months of rent by allowing someone to come in and stay at her 4-bedroom house. And look, if you don't want to have someone come to your house and Airbnb, I completely understand it. Even though when I lived in Tahoe, I did this over a 6-year period. I paid my entire house off in 6 years with tax-free money because I was able to get $5,000 per night, which was double what my mortgage was. So now if you have a business, the cool thing is you can rent the home to your business. So if you're a real estate agent or a mortgage broker, or an attorney or a plumber, carpenter, chiropractor, it doesn't matter. You can rent it to your business for market rates. And as long as you have the paperwork properly done, which is what I do at my company, and I create the comps to prove that you can do this, you don't have to give this to the IRS unless you're audited, which the IRS clearly says in IRS code 280A, do not tell us about it. So it's not going to trigger an audit if you do this because they tell you in the code, don't do it. In fact, Ron, it says if you do tell us, it's a $5,000 fine. So do not tell them that you're doing this.
Isn't that amazing? So what if I rent a property, if Ron Siegel rents a property in Lake Tahoe, am I allowed to then rent it at that property out to my company and make a little spread on that?
Absolutely, you can do that.
It's just amazing.
You know, the thing what I tell people all the time is stop asking your CPA for tax advice. You're asking the referee how to beat the game. They're not there for that. Instead of asking, can I do this? You need to be asking, how can I do this? So for example, in the big, beautiful bill, there's a clause in there now that allows every single business owner to buy an exotic car, Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Maserati, McLaren, and write off 100% of the purchase price, the interest if you finance it, the insurance, and the maintenance. 100% for all business owners. Probably not very many people talking about that, but it's inside the big, beautiful bill. So don't ask your CPA, can I write off the Ferrari? You need to ask them, how do I write off the Ferrari?
You know, I heard you say that. Now, full disclosure, you know, Ronnie and I have been friends, as I mentioned, for a long, long time. And I went to his class this last week. I spent 4 days online with going to his class. Great class, highly recommended. I learned a lot. And, you know, one of the beauties of doing radio every day is I get to talk to smart people and learn, right? If you're not only trying to be the one talking, if you do the one listening. In fact, my wife generally sends me a message saying, let your guests talk more. But I share this because most of you know, if you've been watching Ron Siegel Radio for any length of time, around the turn of the century, I was licensed at Merrill Lynch. And one of the issues that I had as a licensee was FINRA does not allow licensees to tell you everything you know because they're worried that you're going to, make mistakes. So I couldn't tell people that, it's a smart move to take equity out of your house and invest it because that's how you make money. Couldn't say that. That was against the rules. And it's the exact same thing Rondi's saying with CPAs. They've got an association and a regulator that says, hey, you can say this and can't say that. But the flip side of what Rondi's sharing with us is I had the same thing at Merrill Lynch. If somebody came to me and said, hey, what's your opinion of Merrill Lynch stock? Then I could answer the question. I couldn't tell somebody don't buy Merrill Lynch or buy Merrill Lynch. But if they came to me, I could answer the question. And that's what Rondi's saying right here. The CPA, they may know the answers. But Rondi, the beauty is they don't even need to know the answers. They can go on ChatGPT because you just told them what the code is.
Yep. IRS code 2808. Here's another one. You can pay your children as a business owner. You can pay your children under the age of 18, $15,750 per year. And it goes up for inflation every year, up to $35,000 per year if they're going to college. So all these people talking about, I need to save money for my kids to go to college. No, you don't. If you're a business owner, you can pay your child $35,000 per year when they're in college. And it's tax deductible for you as the business owner and tax free for the student. And yet most people don't do this.
And now let me throw this out there because I'm the student today. What if I own two businesses? Can each business pay that $35,000 a year?
It is limited to the $35,000 for the student. Now, could you pay more? Absolutely. I have a client right now that his son is going to school in Scotland. And I said, instead of just paying for the college, pay your son 35 grand a year to work on your social media and actually do something. And he's like, well, he needs more than that. I said, then pay him more than that because he's going to be in a 10% tax bracket, most likely. And you're in a 40% tax bracket. So if you need to give him an extra 10 grand, he's going to pay $1,000 in tax. Big deal. If you take the 10 grand out and give it to him, you're going to pay $4,000 in tax. So sometimes you want to pay your kids more because they're in a different tax bracket.
It's just amazing because again, and I'm gonna throw this out there once again because Rondi's sharing these things. Think about the things that number one, think of the things that he's sharing today with us. Now I look at it and say, okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg of what he shared in the weekly, that the class that I was in for a week. And gosh only knows what there must be if we are to retain him to work for our company. Just throwing that out there for you. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, more with our tax guru, credit guru, Rondi Lambeth. You can reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or RonSiegelRadio.com, Facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. And if you missed any part of our broadcast, Ron Siegel 1 on YouTube, Ron Siegel, the numeral 1 on YouTube. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Ron Siegel Radio. Your home and mortgage connection.
Do you know a homeowner experiencing divorce? Do you know a real estate reference and the divorce decree could cost tens of thousands of dollars? A certified divorce mortgage planning and real estate report could save you thousands of dollars, and it's free from your local certified divorce lending professional. Reach out to Ron today. RonIsMyLender.com. Again, RonIsMyLender.com. Licensed under NMLS 217037, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That is my message, and I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 1990. The Your Credit Matters segment today being brought to you by rsrlinks.com/debt-free, rsrlinks.com/debt-free. I don't have a lot of time to give you any story today, so I'm not, because I want to get back to Rondi Lambeth, but I am going to tell you, visit rsrlinks.com/debt-free, because I want you to be able to get out of debt. You can either do that through debt consolidation loans if you own real estate. We've got other kinds of loans available if you don't own real estate, strategies to help you. All of those things are there. I just want to make sure that you go and fill out the form real quick. It doesn't take any time. Or you can go to rsrlinks.com/Sora, rsrlinks.com/Sora. That's 30 seconds. It's a mini app, and that'll actually tell us a soft credit pull for you, so it doesn't affect your score. It'll tell you what your liabilities look like, and we can give you some guidance there. That is the Your Credit Matters segment, brought to you by rsrlinks.com/debt-free, rsrlinks.com/debt-free. So we're learning a lot this morning from our guru, Rondi Lambeth, credit guru and tax guru. So again, he's not the CPA. He gives you the stuff that, and I had a CPA that resigned his license, who I actually went to many, many years ago. He's since passed away. And his comment to me was, Ron, if my clients knew that I knew then what I knew then while I had my license, every one of them should have sued me for malpractice, because he wasn't allowed to share. So, Rondi, I'm assuming you're not a CPA, Rondi.
That is correct. I am not a CPA.
Smart. So when I got started in radio, because I've got a real estate license, I've got a mortgage license, a lot of regulation. So I set up, or my wife set up, a media and production company that she owns. I have no ownership in it at all. So my question, Rondi, is if I have a business and my wife has a business, can we go on a business planning trip together? And can we each write that off?
Yes. Not only can both of you write it off. I mean, if you're going on a business trip together, I mean, you're not going to get double deductions because you're together. If you guys were shareholders in each company, employees with each company, or if it's completely separate, then yeah, you can write it off as long as there's a business purpose. But here's the other thing, Ron. If you and your wife run separate companies, both of you get to rent your home out 2 weeks out of every year. So instead of it being $750,000 a year for Ron Siegel Radio, it's now $750,000 for Ron and $750,000 for the marketing company, for $1.5 million per year, tax-free.
Holy cow. Now,
and this is why the wealthy don't pay tax, Ron, because they're not making income, because it doesn't qualify at it. Now, on your tax return, when you go to buy a house, it does qualify as income because you get a 1099. However, the IRS says don't report it to us, so you can show it as income for a mortgage purpose, but you don't have to pay income tax on it.
That's a fascinating concept there, because you just have to document that it's tax-free income. So you got to get that documentation from Rondi that shows exactly why you didn't show it. Attach the 1099, show the bank statement where it went into your account, and you've got the paper trail that the underwriters are going to want to know about. It's very, and then I'm going to guess, and I think I'm right, but Rondi, you're going to tell me, I don't know if you may not know this part of it because you're in the tax space, but in most areas of underwriting, if you've got tax-free income, if I get tax-free IHSS income or mentoring income, I get to increase that by 100. I get to report that for underwriting purposes at 125%, I believe is the number. I'm guessing that 750,000 is now 125% of 107.
That's awesome. I did not know that. So 125%.
That's, yeah, you get to, you bump it up for non-taxable income, kind of like Social Security income.
Very cool.
So, there's a lot of areas in here. Rondi, you shared something, again, I think it was on social media, and I'm going to ask you to change hats. to your credit hat that was saying about getting I think it was something about getting a installment loan, paying it down so you don't have a lot of interest, but that'll help your credit score?
Yes. So only 17% of your credit score has to do with negative payment history. And yet that's what everybody focuses on. That's what over 100,000 people have hired me to fix, is the negative payment history. And then they ignore the other 83% of the credit score, one of which is how long you've had your credit. So that's 15% of your credit score, the length of credit. The problem is when you go buy a car and it's a 5-year note and then you pay it off early, the banks don't like that. So they program FICO, which I'm a FICO certified credit professional trained by FICO. So when I tell you this stuff, it's coming from FICO. It's not something I heard on the internet. When you pay off a loan early, you will actually see your credit score come down because you just cost the bank money. They don't want you to pay it off. So instead, what you do is you pay it down quickly. So for example, if you buy a $50,000 vehicle, instead of paying it off, you pay it down to $50. And then you pay $1 to $2 a month for the next 50 months. And what will happen is that will show up the following month that the balance has come down. So your credit score goes up now. And then every month there's activity, even though it's only $1. But what also happens is it shows up that you've made 50 payments all up front. So this has a drastic increase to your credit score versus coming down. Now, are you technically debt-free? So could you get on Dave Ramsey's show and scream, freedom? No, because you owe $50 on a $50,000 truck. You still got to cover, it with insurance. But if you needed to sell it, you just pay off the $50 loan. So this is one of the ways that you can hack, if you will, the credit system without paying a lot of interest.
It just fascinates me, all these different things that we don't know what we don't know. And by getting a hold of somebody who does know, like Rondi, think about how much better you'll do. If you want to find out more about this information, if you want to chat with Rondi Lambeth, he's got a very, very unique website, rondilambeth.com. So you just go to rondilambeth.com, set up an appointment with his team, and they can help you. As he said, he's got a crew of people that handle the credit stuff, and he's got a crew of people that do the tax stuff, and he does strategies. I'm going to highly recommend, I don't know if and when Rondi's going to do another one of those the 1-week courses that I think it's like 2 hours a day for a week or something. Again, Rondi's from the school of over delivering. So, I can tell you that I got a ton out of it. And we're going to try and get Rondi to come on our household board of directors at some point. He doesn't even know I'm going to hit him up for this. But if you go to rsrlinks.com/HBOD, household board of directors, rsrlinks.com/HBOD, make sure you get into our community so you can start seeing some of the things we're doing there, where we can try and bring people like Rondi in there, hopefully, to educate you. But if you've got a business and you're paying a lot of taxes, if you're a self-employed individual, Rondi didn't even get into this because we don't have time. W-2 employees, there's not a lot of ways to minimize your taxes, but Rondi knows those too.
There is now the big beautiful bill for all W-2 employees.
There you go, rondilambeth.com, or you can reach me anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. And as always, I ask, set that first radio preset button to come back here and join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Thanks to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to Josh and Sean who are engineering us today. And of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.